What's good? Back with another episode of the Major Music Podcast. It's your boy Dee Dot coming at y'all. This is your first time checking out the Major Music Lounge podcast. This is a platform created for music producers, sound designers, app developers, kind of like in the music production space, and any type of like content creators that are also music producers. Even artists are welcome for them to really come on and talk about some of the things that they're doing, whether they are independent or whether they are major. I want to hear some stories as far as how you got started with your craft in whatever particular lane that you're in, and just kind of really to spread some knowledge to other producers and people in this creative space. Today we're going to talk to Ruqone about his new project, Muzik For Maniacs, and I went through some of the brother's catalog, and it's pretty deep. I like his sound, and definitely looking to get into this conversation with him, kind of along the lines on that boom back. He kind of has vibes to me like Alchemist, to be real. We're just gonna chop it up about his new project and more. You can follow me on Instagram at D._majormusic. And subscribe to my YouTube channel as well for a place where you can find more producer interviews, also music producer tutorials and beat making videos. And for you artists out there, I like to post a lot of my beats to YouTube as well. So definitely check that out. Let's go ahead and get into this interview with Ruqone. I'd like to welcome everybody to the Major Music Lounge podcast. Joined with the homie Ruqone. Gonna discuss his new project, Muzik For Maniac. Just a pleasure to have you on the show, brother. Connected with you, a couple of days ago and got a chance to listen to the album. And your style to me kind of reminds me, at least this particular album, kind of like that Alchemist vibe to it in terms of like the sampling and just the old school hip hop vibes that I get from your music. And I really think people are gonna dig this project, man. I like what I heard.
Oh, man, thanks. I appreciate that, man. It was fun putting that together. The artist on it, Rough Draft. My brother, he's been rapping for a while, and he really was able to bring a lot of that what you just described to life. It's harder. It seems like it's harder to find a lot of the newer artists that can really vibe with that. I've done some things with some of the local newer guys around here, but, I kind of had to meet them where they live, so to speak, and kind of tailor it more towards their sound. Because and I'm not saying they struggle with it, but they just seem to have a harder time with some of the more developed rappers,
Yeah. And you're right. I think a lot of guys these days, they tend to go to the trap vibes in terms of their whole sound. And I like the fact that you're bringing that old school hip hop sound back. You're kind of keeping that in the forefront of just a lot of like the independent artists and producers that are creating now in this day. Now, how long have you been producing music?
I've been at this for about 6-7 years now. I've been working in radio too. Like while I was doing that, like a lot of the same principles with like creating a promo for radio is like the same thing for creating, music. So I would be doing something at a radio station, making a promo for a radio show, and also sitting there messing with the software and making beats. You know what I mean? And I just got to the point where I started, like say 5 or 6 years ago, buying equipment and really kind of dabbling, but not, too afraid to put anything out. And then like, I think 2018, I finally had the guts to put out an instrumental album on SoundCloud, and, people seem to like it. So I just kind of started building from there,
Okay. All right. Yeah, man. I mean, our paths are similar in that regard as well. I've been kind of at it probably about 14, 15 years, but at the beginning of producing, I actually did another music producer podcast around that time. And, a lot of it was involved with learning how to work like engineering software on our end, as well as some other things. I actually learned a lot because the other two guys were more audio engineers than I was. And outside of that, I did want to ask you, like, what are you using to produce now?
Well, now I'll say about April. My fiance bought me this guy. I'll show the audience. I'm in my studio now anyway, so if I can get this thing to turn around, I'll give y'all a tour real quick.
Yeah, man, feel free.
I'm currently using this guy right here. It's a Complete Control 49 key keyboard. I'm using that with Ableton on that guy pretty much since I'll say April. Pretty much all my beats have been on that. I was using, for the most part, this machine MK3. I know it's the weapon of choice for probably 50% of the dudes that are producing right now. So, that was pretty cool. I love working with that thing. I still do a lot of stuff with it, but that Complete Control keyboard is just crazy, man. So my sound, like the sound of the stuff I make, it just went up ever since I got that thing. And then like learning Ableton over the last year, that's really helped my sound as well. So I'm kind of leaning towards that, but it's still hard to get away from old Reliable right here, this machine. So, kind of mixing both.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that because like I use Machine Micro in my lab, but I also have the S series keyboard right next to me for Complete Control 49 key S series. That's been kind of my go-to pretty much, I would say, for the last 10 years or so, machine.
Okay.
I use I dabble in a little bit of Logic and then also MPC 1, but I was an old school like MPC 2000 user before and ended up just going straight software. Then I just wanted to get back into the MPC, so that's why I got the MPC 1. But yeah, man, it's I want to get into Ableton. I hear some great things about it. Now, do you dabble at all in the machine software, any?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Like when I was using the MK3 primarily, I was using a lot of the machine software, and it's real user-friendly. That's why I like it. It seems like, I've messed with some MPC stuff in the past, but it seems like this, in my opinion, was integrated perfectly with the software. You know what I'm saying? So I like the way it flows with that, but I thought I would never be able to like go to anything else. But then once I got my hands on that Ableton, it was just like, man, where's this been all my life?
Yeah, man. That Ableton, a lot of my other producer homies use it, swear by it with the push 2. They have the push 2 that they use. And I thought about it again, but I had to kind of slow down. I got into this big thing, just buying too much gear over the last couple of years. So I had to really slow down from buying gear. But I may add on Ableton at some point. Right now in my lab, other than like Machine and Logic, I do use Reason. And then I also I use my iPad to do a lot of production as well. So it's kind of like I'm in a lot of different spaces, and I just kind of had to slow down with it for a little bit. But having
I did my first instrumental album all with iPad. All those beats came from my iPad.
Man, do you still dabble in that any, or are you strictly enabled?
Yeah, I really haven't done anything with it for a while. I gave the iPad to my son, went away to school, and I got another one to replace it, but I haven't even put the machine app back on. Not machine, excuse me, MPC app. I haven't even put that back on. So.
Sure, man.
Yeah.
Sure. So, we talked a little bit about your sound. Who were some of your influences as far as when you started creating beats?
Well, I don't know, man. You're in Texas, so you probably can relate to this. Being here in Chicago, I'm in my 40s, so I've listened to a lot of hip hop over the years, what I'm saying? So I've been influenced by so many different kinds from the east to the west to the south. So I can't really pinpoint like one person. I mean, as far as producers, Large Professor, you mentioned Alchemist, dope.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of new guys that are really dope, like DJ Dahi, V-Don. There are a lot of dope producers. I can't really just pinpoint one guy. Premier, Pete Rock, go to pretty much everybody,
Yeah.
So, I mean, I can name producer Jinx. I feel like, he doesn't get any of the credit that he deserves. You never hear people mention him, but he created Ice Cube's sound as a solo artist. Cool G Rap, he did one of Coogee Rap's albums. I forgot which one, but the one with Ill Street Blues. He did that whole album. So, I mean, a guy like that, but there are a bunch of different guys.
Man, and then, you know, you're born and raised in Chicago?
Yeah, I've lived other places, but yeah, pretty much born and raised here, yeah.
Okay, so yeah. I mean, y'all had like Kanye, y'all had Twista, and that whole like do or die era down there as well. I know that was probably a little bit of influence as well.
Oh, definitely. Definitely. Yeah. There's constant debate here about, you know, Common or Twista. You know, it's two completely different styles of MC. But I think that goes back to what I was saying in the last thing, where here in Chicago, we just are influenced by so many different types of hip hop that it's not like how New York in the early 90s had like a specific boom bap type sound, or LA had their G-Funk thing. Like we had some of everything. Like you could go to the West Side and get a Lupe Fiasco and a Twista from the same part of town, completely different types of sound though. You know, you come to the South Side, you get a group like the Snipers, who are locally famous here, or you get a guy like Common, completely different kind of sound, you know what I mean? So that's one of the things I think that makes Chicago so dope. And even with the newer dudes now, you know what I'm saying, you still get a guy like Chance, you know, who in his earlier days was way more, I guess, hip hop, for lack of a better term. And then you get guys like Dirk and, you know, other people that are doing stuff here, G Herbo. You know, nobody really sounds like it. And I kind of stressed that on the last album I did, which was more of a compilation album with a bunch of different local MCs around here that can be found on my Instagram too, on my link tree. But I stressed that at the start, where Chicago, you know, has the most diverse sound of any city in the country.
Yeah. One of the things going through like your catalog, I noticed that a lot of your projects, you have a lot of your catalog on Bandcamp. Now, it's kind of a two-part question actually. Is one, you as a producer, like this last album, Muzik For Maniacs, do you, for example, seek out a lot of the independent artists in your area to work with? Or, you know, do you maybe have like a certain clientele, I guess, that of artists that maybe like have reached out to you to work, for example?
Well, I have a couple that have reached out to me, a couple of female MCs in different cities here around the country that ever since I put out that last one that I just mentioned, have reached out to me on like some R&B, hip hop kind of mesh thing. And hopefully one of those projects will be dropping late this year, if not early next year. There's a lady in Brooklyn. Her name is Miss Outlaw. But also, she'll show up on this album, by the way, too. She's on one of the songs on this Muzik For Maniacs.
Okay.
But also, for the most part, yeah, it's been people, like I got a little circle of folks who I work with. And, you know, right now we're just trying to be prolific, you know, get as much stuff out there and get heard, you know what I'm saying, to kind of grow like that. I'm sort of like the in-house producer for this thing called Task Force Music. And, you know, it's a bunch of guys from different areas of the South Side and South suburbs here in Chicago doing, you know, some pretty dope things hip-hop wise here. And, you know, we're just trying to build that up.
Yeah. And then like with your releases, the one, cause I checked out some of the other ones on Bandcamp, and like, I actually, you're my second guest in a row that, had a really good following on Bandcamp. And I noticed you also are on the other major platforms out there. Do you have a preference as far as one that you like to use over the other?
Well, while you get the exposure from Spotify and Apple, you know, if you're looking to make money, you know, Bandcamp is a way for that. If you want to, you know, just try to build up some money off of a project, but, you know, you can't beat that exposure either. So it depends on what, you know, you value the most. You know, I can't say by any means I've gotten rich off of the Bandcamp thing, but, you know, it's nice to have that money from that. Yeah. And then, you know, to get the exposure as well with the, you know, mainstream streaming services, you know, like the best of both worlds for that.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with that. The thing I like about Bandcamp is the fact that you can actually make a lot more money on your projects than you can, because what you can get 1,000 streams, man, and what that might be $1 or $2, you know, with a couple of thousand streams, opposed to you can pick your pricing, you know, on Bandcamp. On top of, even if you don't pick your pricing, you can accept donations on your Bandcamp. So, you know, if somebody wants to leave like $1, somebody wants to leave $10, they have that option to do so on Bandcamp. And a lot, like the last guest basically was telling me a story about how he still does a lot of his projects on major platforms, but he still offers a lot of them on Bandcamp as well. And one time he had made, I think, around $500 from promoting his album through his social media and locally, like at open mics. So, you know, there's going to always be a space for making a lot more bread, you know, from your music, but because now these days you don't have the days where you can get out there and sell CDs independently now. So exactly. I feel like Bandcamp is kind of a new form of that.
Exactly. I agree 100%.
Yeah. Yeah. I did want to also ask, as far as like, do you have any other projects that, you know, you're working on this year outside of the Muzik For Maniacs, or you kind of pushing that for the remainder of 2021?
Well, yeah, that's going to be getting pushed here for the next couple of months. It's dropping on Bandcamp on the 27th of August. And also with a couple of weeks after will be released on, you know, all the streaming services and everything. But also I mentioned the thing with, you know, Miss Outlaw. She's a Brooklyn MC, but also a songstress. She's a really dope singer. And like, she sent me one of my beats that I sent her back. She sent it back like singing like R&B. And I was like, wow. I never envisioned, because it was the first time anything of mine had ever had any R&B done to it. So it was just strange hearing it. But like, the more I listened to it, like, wow, this is really dope. So we're working on kind of like a blended project like that. Like I said, that will be either later this year or early next year. Also working with another songstress out of Houston, Texas. You know, we're working on something that will probably drop early next year as well. So, and then I like to put out an instrumental album every year. So I got a bunch of beats. And maybe, you know, the way that happens is I'll just be sitting around and I'll be listening to them and I'll pick like 10 to 12 and that'll be the album. There's really no deep process that goes into making my instrumental albums. I'll just pick out some and put them together and put the album out a month later.
Yeah, man. I'm the same way. I need to actually put out some for this year. But I'm an artist too. So I kind of go in between the two. But how do you think, or how much do you think it's important for producers to put out beat tapes? Because I think like when I've done it in the past, I've ended up selling a couple of beats here and there off of some of those projects just from other artists listening to them. How important do you think that is to a producer's brand?
Well, it's very important, as you mentioned a few minutes ago, about not being able to go out and sell tapes out of your trunk like they used to in the 90s and stuff. That really doesn't happen anymore. So now we have to do things like do it online, you know, through social media and stuff like that. We take these tapes and that's our way of pushing our demos or pushing, you know, ways to get our beats sold or our beats heard, you know. So I look at it like that. I'm just putting a demo out and I actually might make a few dollars off of putting that demo out. You know what I mean? So it really works, you know, both ways as far as that goes.
Yeah. And I feel like we're in a real era, especially with this, you know, mention the pandemic, where you still got a lot of people that might be working from home and they might have your instrumental album bumping in the background. And on top of that, you know, you mentioned it, you never know how much exposure you can get, because I've had people that I never really would think listen to my instrumental albums come up to me and say, you know, great job on a project, really like what you're doing. And I think instrumental projects, it gives you the ability to connect with a wider audience as well. Not just maybe artists that might be potentially looking for beats, but also just people that are fans of instrumental music.
Man, I have a pretty cool story that goes with that. Like I put out that One by One Volume 2 instrumental album earlier this year in April. And somebody who never ever comments on anything that I post, they never hit like or anything, but they messaged me one day. All they did was say, "I see you. I'm going to leave a donation on this last record." And they dropped like a $100 for like a $5 instrumental album. They gave me $100 on Bandcamp for it. So, that was really dope. So, stuff like that, lets you know, like you said, people are listening, even though they might not see it, but they are listening.
Yeah. And, a lot of people kind of give up on themselves if they post maybe a song here or a beat there and they only get a couple of likes. And sometimes you might see somebody else getting a lot more likes. And that's where you got to really, I think we've been conditioned to kind of view everything from a social media perspective rather than looking at the big overall picture when it comes to how we promote our craft, because likes doesn't always translate to people actually listening to your music.
Exactly.
I did want to ask, because I also checked out your YouTube channel. Big props to you on that, because I saw you have a lot of content on there as far as your instrumentals. But do you use that as a direct avenue to also get heard or like sell beats from?
Well, now I kind of, recently decided I'm going to put certain stuff in certain places. Like my Bandcamp, I've turned that into the area where you're going to get all original music, like stuff I do with the acts I'm working with. As I mentioned, you'll find like original music on my Bandcamp. YouTube and Dat Piff, which is really slept on, in my opinion. That's a great place for stuff to get heard. I put a lot of my remix projects there. Stuff where I find acapellas. Like I recently, about a year ago, I bought the Jay-Z Black album, acapella. So I did like a whole remix for that. So I put that stuff. You'll find that on like Dat Piff, and I put like a single or two on my YouTube page. And my YouTube page, that's something I probably need to give a little more attention to, but I do put stuff there. But yeah, I kind of just, like I said, I have different avenues for different things.
Yeah. And I like also the fact that you're doing these acapella joints. I think a lot of people have gotten away from doing acapella remixes. And I actually have fun with it. I remember like BeatStars was doing a remix to, like, they did two of them. They did one for a Rush the 5'9" song, and then he did one as well for one of Paul Wall's songs. And I like that kind of stuff, just being able to take those raw vocals and build your own concept around it and put it out there. And that in form can also potentially help you sell beats. Or then you never know if the artists themselves may hear that remix and be like, that's dope. Let me put that out there. Or, they might want to work with you on some other stuff in the future. So you never know. What made you get into doing that? Is that something that you've kind of always done? Or I know that you've been on there for maybe like 2 years?
Yeah, after I did the instrumental album for SoundCloud, 2018, like I would just be, sitting in class. I was also working in radio. I was also a radio instructor here in town. So I'd be sitting in class, just looking at YouTube, and I would see these acapellas. Like, wow, I wonder how this would sound on this beat that I made. So I would just start meshing stuff and listening to it in my headphones. Like, nah, that ain't right. Then one day, like I decided to make a beat specifically. I believe it was for Black Moon, How Many MCs?
Yeah.
That's one of the ones that are on my YouTube page. But like I made a beat specifically for that off like a Teddy Pendergrass sample or something. And it turned out perfect. Like I didn't even have to like maneuver any of the vocals or anything. I just laid it on there and it worked. So, I got a good response from that. And, I kind of just started going from there with that.
Okay. All right, man. Yeah. I dig that a lot, man. Definitely keep that up, man. I did want to ask, did you have any like shout outs that you wanted to give as far as people that you worked with or, Anybody in
Well,
your camp?
first I want to shout out everybody that, was involved on this album. Of course, Rough Draft, he is a great, great, great MC. I'm trying to push him more to get involved with social media because he's just not that kind of dude. I mean, he has an Instagram, and everything like that, Facebook, and he puts stuff up there, but, he's not as active as like you would like an artist to be. But definitely shout out to him because he's one of the dopest MCs I've ever heard, known or unknown. You know what I'm saying? So I really love the way he raps. Big shout out to him. Big shout out to one of his partners, Plex, who's also, he has a song featured on the record as well. Another dope MC, great producer. He also has a videography and music video company going right now called Matt Productions that he's doing well with. He's going to do probably, hopefully, fingers crossed, a video for one of the songs on this album, the song that's featured on once you go onto the Bandcamp page called Out of Time, which is like, it's one of the conscious joints on the record. So big shout out to him. As I mentioned, Miss Outlaw from Brooklyn, dope MC, dope singer. Love her to death. She's very, very cool, nice lady. Shout out to, shout out to everybody who just supports, what I'm doing right now. People that are listening, people that are purchasing. I appreciate all that. People that are hitting the like button, leaving comments on stuff. So I really just appreciate all those folks, man.
Man, definitely. That's what's up, man. I wanted to kind of talk about, you mentioned something at the beginning of that about using social media. Now, it's one of the topics I've talked about on this program with a couple of other producers, but I know so many talented dudes, man, whether they rap, whether they do beats, that they don't really put a lot of their work out there. And to me, they can probably have a larger following than they currently have if they just did maybe posting a song here or there or engage more with social media. How big do you think that is to also a person's brand, being able to put yourself out there on social media and create content?
It's huge because that's how people are communicating. And like you said, with the pandemic earlier, everybody kind of being in the house, how else are you going to get the stuff out there when the stores are closed? You know what I mean? So everybody probably, if they did a research, survey or whatever on the numbers for social media, engagement during all that stuff when people were locked down, it probably went through the roof. So, this is the time to be putting out stuff and being prolific with your music. So I think it's huge. I'm doing that more. So I'm trying to put stuff out there without giving away a whole project. You know what I mean? Like I want to put just enough out there to entice people. Like I'm going to put one of the songs, like it's going to be like pretty much a single, but it's going to be on social media only. Like I'm going to put it on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram next week to like kind of hype up the album. Sure. So, I'm sure other people have done that, but that's my idea. Instead of sending it to YouTube or trying to get people to pay for it on Bandcamp, just put it on my social media pages and let people hear it there. And hopefully that'll, help with the hype for the record a few days later.
Yeah, man, it is so big and so important to a lot of artists, producers. Really, if you have any type of business, for you to be out there on social media promoting your brand, because there are a lot of people that I noticed that do great work, but kind of like I was saying earlier, either they don't post at all, or if they do post, it's not much to do with what they're actually doing in terms of their music or their music production. They're posting other stuff. And, they wonder why they aren't getting the results that everybody else is getting around them. And sometimes you gotta really get yourself out there, connect with your fans. People do want to hear about other things, don't get me wrong. But if you're there, if on your page you have that you're an artist or a producer or a musician, and you're primarily posting about other things, you're not doing yourself any justice. And a lot of people really just gotta stay more engaged in this day and age, because we don't have the events like we used to. I know here where I am in Dallas, those COVID numbers are going up. I don't know, they could shut things down at some point. depending on how those things go. So yeah, depending on where you are, you got to learn how to utilize social media a lot better. Did want to say it was definitely a pleasure to have you on Muzik For Maniacs. What, August 27th?
August 27th on Bandcamp, Muzik For Maniacs, man, rough draft. Dope Chicago MC. I got to check this out. I produced the whole record, you know, all 10 songs. You know, it's really, really a nice blend of like some conscious stuff on there. Then you got the street stuff. You know, we are in Chicago. So, you know, you got to speak to that element of folks. So, you know, it's got something for everybody out there. 10 really, we want to narrow down to the 10 hardest songs we could do. And that's what we wound up with. So that's dropping August 27th. It'll be everywhere, like all the social media platforms, and somewhere in September, sometime in September. But we really would like people to support it on Bandcamp when it drops August 27th.
Yes, sir. And real quick, go ahead and give your social media too. Let them know your social media.
Everywhere is Ruqone, Ruqone. If you're a Facebook person, you're going to find me by my real name, Farouk Basir, Faruqbasir. You'll find me there for that. But everywhere else is Ruqone, Ruqone. That's on Bandcamp, that's Apple Music, that's everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, all that. That Piff, all of that.
Go ahead, follow the homie Ruqone. You could also follow me on Instagram at Dee Dot _Major Music. I appreciate everybody that tuned in to the Major Music Podcast. Just chopped up with the homie Ruqone. You can catch this episode and others on YouTube and all podcast streaming platforms. Thank you, and we are out.
Major Music.